Hello everyone, I warmly welcome you to an inspiring speaker session on detectable hoses and RFID technology. These are smart solutions that were created by Continental Industrial Fluid Solutions. You might think that the development of industrial hoses has come to an end, since hoses are just a conventional industrial good nobody really cares about, right? Well, I can assure you that this is not the case, as we will see today. Two experts from Continental will introduce us to two innovations that not only provide smart solutions on how to tackle Industry 4.0, but also protect your health and keep you safe. To give you an overview, first, we will learn about the functionality behind smart hoses and how that innovation addresses current market needs. After that, we will hear more about RFID technology, how it works, and, more importantly, how operators like you can benefit from the data that is collected across industries. So now, let's give a warm welcome to our two experts, Cengiz Sidlak and Thomas Völksen. And before we start, an important note, we were all tested negative for COVID in the morning, so we are all safe. Cengiz, you are business manager for food and beverage as well as water hoses at the Industrial Fluid Solutions unit at Continental. In this function, you're an expert on the product range of food and beverage hoses, and you will introduce us today to the latest development of detectable hoses. So please tell us, what was your first impulse for your research with hoses?
Yeah, thanks, Alyosha, for having us here today. So you can see in the background an application in the food and beverage range. So this is, for example, a brewery, but you can see our hoses in many other food and beverage related applications. For example, dairies for the yogurt production, as an example. And here it is really very important that we have hoses which fulfill special standards, but also fulfill the safety requirements in this industry. If you look to the safety requirements in that industry, it is very important to have state-of-the-art products which can be used in the applications, and you can imagine that no one wants to have a different odor or taste in his product, like if you produce yogurt or even beer. You should not change the odor and taste of the product. But also more important, this is what we talk about today, the smart solution here. We need to have also detectable liners to really, if there is a mechanical damage to the product, that it can be visible for the operators. So this is here what we are talking about and the topic about.
But what is the real problem behind it? How do the operators know if their hoses are contaminated?
Yeah, it's not about the hoses and the contamination of the hoses, it's more the product. So if you see here, in a production of a hose, you have different layers, and we have here a material density which cannot be detected by the normal operations in a food production, for example, marmalade production. So to avoid that you find any kind of, let's say, particles which are not belonging to the food, they use today magnetic detection and also X-ray detection. And here the problem starts, yeah? So the rubber is not magnetically detectable, but also the density is too low so that it cannot be seen by an X-ray detector. And here starts the challenge. So what we are offering is a liner material, which you can see here also in this picture in the background. So the hose contains of different layers. We have the inner layer. We have then rubber layers in between. You can apply a steel helix, which is good for vacuum resistancy. And then you have a cover. And every layer has a special function, so to say. Yeah, and in our baking mix, if you like to, we have here, we are adding special additives so that the hose liner, if it breaks, and that can happen in operations, can be detected in line with the normal production material that the operators have. So there is no need of additional devices, and the hose, material-wise, is smart enough to say, hey, guys, I have a problem. There is something out of my inner liner, and now you have to stop the production.
So this is a serious issue for every operator. But now I really want to know what makes Continental's hoses so special and different from other hoses, and how do they become smart?
Yeah, the smart thing about is here really that we have done a next step in the material technology. So it's not only a standard rubber hose, which you can find everywhere. It's really the ingredient, the baking recipe, what we have used to make it, let's say, smart. Yeah. If you look today in the industry, and especially in the food and beverage industry, you see product recalls. Yeah, and that's really expensive and is also bad for the reputation of any producer. So just guess a marmalade producer has to announce a big recall that gives a lot of cost, and more important, it can cause human harm. And here we are really paying in with our solutions so that this can be avoided. And it's not only about, let's say, a bad reputation. For me, it's more important that human harm can be avoided with that.
What insights have you gotten from the market? Any feedback yet?
Yes, sure. So with this new technology, we for sure have to go to big producers. I mentioned marmalade production, marzipan production, for example, but we also have products in dairy production, and we are now testing these products in real harsh applications so that we can see if the product performance is good enough and we can rely on the technology. And this we did with big producers and manufacturers in the industry. So first we tested the hoses with Speseems so that we can see if the X-ray or the magnetical detectors are seeing the pickles. And afterwards, for sure, we bring in the hoses in the applications to really monitor how they are acting. And after a time, for sure, we will then double check if the quality is still good enough.
So looking back at the whole development process, what were the biggest challenges you had to deal with?
Yeah, that's a good one. The biggest challenge, especially for the food and beverage product range, is for sure the recipe. Yeah, so we have to fulfill very strict standards. And for this, we have to double check the recipe and the standards because this is also changing over time. We have to check them. We have to align them according to standards. And here, as we also have another additive, if you like to, yeah, so that the hose is detectable, we had to put a lot of efforts into that development. But finally, we did it, and we see also the demand in the market for this solution. And we believe that with this solution, we can bring a big benefit towards our customers and also make a big step in regards to smart solutions.
Perfect. Cengiz, thank you so much for being with us. Great insights, and please don't leave the studio.
Okay.
Stay with us. Yeah, stay with us. We have seen one of many smart solutions made by Continental. To make a product smart, there is not only one way to do it. Sometimes technologies can go hand in hand. For example, the hoses we were just talking about. At Continental, you can detect not only possible leakages through smart technology, but also anything about the hose's past and current condition, which is a crucial factor for maintenance. So let's talk to someone who knows all about that, and that is you, Thomas. You work as a business manager for petrochemical hoses at Continental, and I heard that you have really special powers because your job is to make the invisible visible, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's a certain kind of power, but I would say I wouldn't go that far. But what we can do with our technology is we can make a lot of data or information visible of the product, not the product itself. So even if you are not close to the product, you can easily find out what product is it exactly, where is it located, what is the status of the product. That's what we call visibility of the product in terms of that. And when you're looking to industries where a lot of products, or a lot of our products, industrial hoses, are used in a huge number, for example, in big chemical plants or refineries or food plants, they have dozens or hundreds of hoses in. It's sometimes not that easy to get an overview or a quick inventory about all the materials you have in your plant. And for that, our technology will be very, very helpful. And not only for that, it can show you the whole history of a hose. So starting in our hose production plant, you can add some information about the production process to the product. When we send it out to the distribution, which is our typical way, selling way, they also have some ideas how they can store informations just related to that product, and in the final application in a chemical plant or food plant or whatever, they also have other ideas what to do with this technology to make information and data visible.
Okay, so please let us know, what is the technology behind it? How does the operator get the data from the hoses?
Yeah, the technology we are using here is the RFID technology, which is not absolutely new. I think most of us know this technology, and it's working like this, that we have RFID tags. That's the little, very, very tiny elements or animals we have in our hoses. They have a little antenna with them. They are passively working. So this is a technology in the hose. There is an RFID tag in the hose. Then you need a device to read and write or to communicate with the tag, which is typically a scanner like this, or it can even be a smartphone or a handheld or whatever. And then you're creating a link to a data set, which can be locally, but which can also be in a cloud solution.
Does this technology affect the hose properties or maybe the performance?
No, we definitely have to say no. It's not impacting the performance of the product. And maybe it's worth to mention that the advantages compared with the common RFID technology is really that the product itself is included in the hose. I will never tell you where it is, but it is there. And maybe you know some products where the tags are assembled on the outside, so you can see them, you can lose them, they can be defect, they can create injuries for the people working with the hose, and that is nothing. All the risks are no longer there with our product, because, as already mentioned, the RFID tag is inside of the hose.
And inside of this studio, as I can see, you brought a smart hose with you. So maybe you can show us how the technology, how the technology works in real life.
Yeah, what you can see here is a hose with a RFID tag inside. The good thing is you can't see it. But I can tell you that we have 4 tags in that hose that can be easily scanned with a typical device like this. So you can scan the hose. I think we all know how to handle a scanner. Sometimes you have to use it in a supermarket. And then the system or the software which is behind the tag is showing you, in that example, there are 4 tags in the hose. So the system is able to detect this tags in a very short time, for example, 2 or 3 seconds. And then you can identify where are the tags and what exactly is the data behind the individual tag.
So what are the concrete benefits? How does the information help the operator?
Yeah, the good thing is really that it's a unique one-to-one combination between that product and the data set. So, for example, for inventory management, if you want to know what do you have in your inventory, that can be relevant for the distribution level, but that can also be important for the plant where they're using the hoses. You can always have a digitalized inventory management with that technology. On the other hand, you can link a lot of information directly with that product. So, for example, you can link it to a photo, to an operator manual. You can link it to any kind of instruction, or it can be a love letter or whatever. You can connect everything directly to that product. And I know that on the distribution side, the colleagues over there have totally different ideas about that compared to, for example, for a chemical plant. They want to do other things. For example, in the application, it is absolutely necessary that you have regular inspections for a hose. And so it's always good. It's not only good, it's requested by law. You need to know what are the products in my plant and what is the status. And it's quite easy with that technology to create a kind of register or a dashboard. And with one click, you can see, I have 100 hoses in my plant. 50 of them are okay. 3 have to be checked within the next 5 days, and the other ones have to be checked within the next 3 months. So that is really, really helpful because it's digitalized, it's centrally stored, and you don't need to walk around with a piece of paper or a pen or whatever and to write the things down. So it's really helping the digitalization approach.
Okay, so now we have learned which data is available and why this is helpful. But what happened next? Will the data be saved somewhere, and can I access the data via my computer, for example?
Yeah. As already mentioned before, you can see the data directly on your device, and I think we have some pictures for that. But you can also go back to your office and use the user interface on your computer. For example, there is a cloud which is developed by Conti, the so-called Conti Connect Cloud, which is a very nice interface, easy to handle, and there you can create whatever you want. You can create an overview. You can try to find out what products are on floor number 3. You can check which products have to be checked within the or inspected in the next week. So that's easy to handle, and I think the most comfortable thing is probably to do it with your computer in the office. But it's also working with a normal smartphone.
I am absolutely sure that a lot of people who are watching us right now are excited, and they're asking themselves, is the technology limited only to hoses, or is there any chance to use this technology in other areas as well?
Looking from the Continental or ContiTech point of view, generally RFID is a well-known technology. But the new thing here is that we are using RFID tags in rubber products. And so the big challenge from technical perspective is that we have to work with high temperatures. For example, in our production process, we have to stand the 160, 170 degrees Celsius for 1 hour. And also in the final application, you can have temperatures like this, which is sometimes not that easy to achieve with normal standard electronic devices or tags. So from the ContiTech point of view, this technology, for example, can also be used for all other rubber products, for conveyor belts or for, what else can be it? Yeah, power transmission. So a lot of rubber products can also use that technology.
Great. So, Thomas, thanks to you as well. Great insights. But there is one big question at the end, to both of you. The people are now enthusiastic about the technology, about the products, but the big question is, are the products, is the technology already available? Can I buy it?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Alyosha. So I would like to shortly link to what Thomas now told us about RFID. So this is a kind of digitalization, and it's I would say it's a kind of journey. So the detectable topic is a kind of material technology. This one is more linked to digitalization and appliance to the product. And there's more smart solutions to come in the next years. So we will also try to implement sensors into the products, for example, to measure the temperature of a hose, and that will all be in line with, let's say, Industry 4.0 and in a kind of preventive maintenance, if you like to. And the detectable hose especially, we are currently conducting big field tests with big manufacturers and really challenge the products in harsh environments so that we can be sure that the performance of these new developed hoses are as good as our regular hoses that we have currently in our portfolio. So yes, in short term, we will close up these testings, and then these products will hopefully be available. And then we can also link these technologies so that it's not only on material basis, but also on the digital side, a good solution, a smart solution, and that will help us in future to have a difference against the competition.
Okay, Thomas, and what about the RFID technology?
Yeah, the RFID technology itself is available, and also first products are available, as you can see here, and we also send out some prototypes to define customers and applications. To be very honest, what we have to do right now is to industrialize our production process for that, but all the technologies and the capabilities are there. And what we need to know right now, and that's the reason why we are here and introducing that idea, is that we need some feedback from the market, from the end users, but also from the distribution side, to learn about their ideas with such a technology. We have a lot of ideas, but we are absolutely sure, and that is already we can see that already with the first discussions we had in the last weeks and months, that talking to the distribution and to the end users, they have much more ideas than we have, and that are the things we would like to learn about.
Perfect. So thank you both. It was a great speaker session about detectable hoses and RFID technology. And to be honest, I would buy it, yeah? I would buy it. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was the last session of Continental Smart Solutions Beyond Rubber. I hope you enjoyed the sessions and you can take a lot of new knowledge home with you. You are now more than welcome to get in touch with Cengiz, Thomas, or any other expert from Continental. Book your personal appointment via the business dating function in your dashboard. Till then, be safe, enjoy the rest of the event, and have a great day. Bye.